Hi, my name is Dustin Westaby, and in this video I will be installing a bar graph display circuit into this LTAR tagger. You can find the product link for the ZZLT LTAR display in the description. Included in the kit are the circuit, a headphone jack, and a switch for power. To install, you will need a drill, a Dremel, and a solder iron. Okay, getting started, we need to fit the extra headphone jack within the iron sight attachment. That is where the Dremel comes in. In addition, we need 2 holes in the iron sight so you can route the 4 wires to the circuit and have a place for the power switch. Before removing the screws from the iron sight attachment, drill a 1/4-inch hole for the wires. Use a marker to mark and align the hole with the 4-pin connector on the circuit board. A quick check of the alignment and everything looks good. Next, you can remove the screws from the iron sight attachment and separate into its halves. Here you will see the tabs, walls, and screw posts. You must preserve the tabs while removing one of the walls and one of the posts. Then repeat for the second half. With the iron sight now howl, you can do a test fit of the headphone jack. You can see how I have folded the wires to make everything fit. These will be your communication wires. Moving on, drill a 1/8-inch hole to access the internal battery. It is now time to open up your LTAR. Remove all the body screws excluding the shield lever. The shield lever is special. The 2 screws in the shield lever cannot be mixed up with the screws from the main housing. In addition, the spring inside of the shield lever can pop out while removing or reassembling. Take note now how the spring is positioned inside of the shield lever. Short side up, long side down. You can now flip the body screw holes facing down to remove the top cover. If you open the lid upside down, parts like the power and sensitivity switch covers will fall out of place, and you will have to find them. If you remove the battery pack, reinsert it now to confirm the tap locations for the battery wires. A quick check on the multimeter shows the location of the battery tap. We want 4.5 volts. The power tap is to the left and right of the power switch. After confirming the battery tap location, remove the battery tray. Heat up your solder iron and solder the negative and then positive wires to the indicated solder points. Now you can route the 2 wires towards your hole. You need to go down to make room for the structure of the top plastic shell, then fold and come back up to the hole while avoiding the screw post. Before replacing the lid, check all movable pieces to ensure they are in position. Replace the power and sensitivity switch covers now if you had removed them earlier. Place the top cover on and snap shut, ensuring the wires are still routed properly. You may need some extra pressure around that spot to close the lid. Replace the screws in the body, again saving the shield lever for last. If you are careful, the shield lever springs are still in place and you can just slide onto the body. Next up is the display power switch. In my test build, my first choice of power switch position was a mistake. You can see that the headphone wiring prevents that spot for a power switch. Here you can see a better position for the switch, located behind a 7/32" hole. Leave yourself a good 3-inch length from the housing and cut the positive wire, then solder the power switch in. Helping hands are useful here to hold the small switch while soldering. Optionally, you can trim the extra leads on the switch. They will only get in the way later. Do a test fit with the wiring crammed into the iron sight attachment. If everything is good, proceed to glue the switch into place. I used hot glue, but epoxy works equally well. In my test install, the glue got in the way of the iron sight attachment slide. To fix this, I cut a notch through the glue to make room for the slide. You may now cram the remaining wires into the hollow cavity of the iron sight attachment. Trim the wires now with about 1 inch of slack, keeping track of which pair is the power and which pair is the headphone jack. During my test install, I used 22 gauge stranded wire, which is too thick, and I did not provide any strain relief. This resulted in damage to the circuit board trace on the 4-pin connector. Join me after the video to see alternate solder points if you too broke the primary connector. With slack in the wires, you may now solder the 4-pin connections. First, the power wires. Positive is the red wire and indicated on the board by the plus symbol. Black is the negative and indicated on the board by the minus symbol. Solder the headphone jack wires next. Red is the shield and left connectors on the headphone jack. Black is the ground connection. At this time, you may power up and test the power and communication wires are connected properly. Proper operation is a single blinking LED until game countdown. Then you will see the game countdown displayed. To provide strain relief for the solder joints, cover the solder connection in hot glue. This will alleviate issues of the wires tearing from the circuit board while priming the wires later. Before adding the glue, do not pull or twist on the wire's solder joint to the circuit board. The strain relief hot glue is not shown in this video. Once the glue is set, gently bunch the wires together and prepare to thread through the hole in the iron sight attachment. Your circuit is now hanging loose from the back of the iron sight attachment. Cram the wires in once again and do a test fit before final assembly. Once you have ensured everything will fit, use hot glue or epoxy to permanently fasten the circuit to the iron sight attachment. Flip the power switches and give her a test drive. The modes are as indicated. Press the display button to change the display mode from health, ammo, and shield. Lastly, you can turn the display on and off as needed during gameplay. Here the tagger is on and in-game, but the display is off. Turn on the display and it will sync to the tagger after a moment. As mentioned earlier, I made a mistake during my test install and tore away the traces on the circuit board for the wire connections. This could have been prevented by using thinner wires and proper strain relief, covering the initial solder joint in hot glue. I must now route the wires further onto the circuit board to the alternate solder locations. This is a task for ultra-thin and brittle wrapping wire or mistake wire. It is insulated 30 gauge solid core wire. The first connection shown is for the battery positive wire. This goes to the single left pin on the voltage regulator. The second connection shown is for the battery negative wire. This goes to the bottom of this capacitor. Wrapping wire is very brittle and must be gently routed back to the 4-pin connector location. I use a marker to indicate which wire is the negative wire for later. To strengthen the wire's connection to the board and prevent future tearing, I now hot glue the wires to the board. While I do a power on test, here you can see the new power wires soldered to the old power wires. The jack connections were not damaged, so I can use the normal jack connector locations. I did opt to use wrapping wire here as well. In doing so, I might as well remove the old headphone jack wires entirely and replace them with new wrapping wires. The headphone jack simply unscrews to open. Removing the old wires, we can see the two connections. The ground wire goes to the small top tab. The second wire actually goes to two connectors, the shield tab, this is the largest tab, and the left tab. I bring in the Tager closer, thread the headphone jack's outer casing, and solder the wires as indicated. The second wire is stripped a bit longer to reach 2 tabs. Before closing, I cover the wires and joint in hot glue to ensure they do not break while stuffing the wires into the iron sight attachment. You can see countdown. And it actually looks really good.
Good luck.
And yeah, everything looks good to me. Switch the ammo.